Three ordinary-looking U.S. wheat pennies, dated 1939, 1940, and 1956, shocked collectors when they surfaced at auction, fetching jaw-dropping prices no one expected. These weren't just old coins. Hidden within them were rare mint errors invisible to the casual eye, but priceless to experts. What made them so valuable? How did tiny imperfections turn loose change into 4- and 5-figure treasures? Stay tuned as we uncover the mystery behind these unassuming coins that changed numismatic history forever. A gleaming wheat penny shy of a century in the making, lightly freckled by age, caught my eye not for its face, but for what lay beneath the grooves. It bore the date 1939, with a whisper of double imprint on the letters I in Liberty, so faint it could easily be cursory wear. But under the right light, the letters echoed, layered, as though time and copper had layered a second impression atop the first. Intrigued, I flipped the coin. Nothing dramatic, just the familiar twin strands of wheat, the plain back, but the core buzz remained in my fingers. That whisper, I would soon learn, mattered. Between 1939 and 1940, the U.S. was clawing out of the Great Depression, preparing quietly for war ahead. Lincoln issued reassurance daily on the cent, pressed from 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, metals that wove quietly into everyday life. The mint's Philadelphia and Denver presses ran tirelessly. Steel dies hammered every fraction of a second until pressure wavered or metal bent, sometimes leaving unintended signatures, tiny doubled lines, microscopic cracks. In those moments, history was stamped in a whisper rather than a roar, that a penny like this quietly slipped into pocket change, washed through commerce, perhaps passed many hands before it nested in a collector's album. I wasn't seeking rarity, just the satisfaction of completing date runs. But when whisking under light, the tiny shift in the mint date surprised me. I hovered. Could it be a double die? I recalled the tales. 1939, DDO wheat pennies were legendary, but few. History books spoke of bold doubling on date or motto. Here, though, only a hint. A clue, a breadcrumb. But hint can become trail. Over the next weeks, I hunted through rolls, more 1939s, more doubles. Nothing is crisp. But the third find, better than the first, showed doubling clearly in date, doubling in the motto, even framing Lincoln's coat collar. I photographed them under LED spotlights, angles tweaked for every shadow line. I posted online, 1939 wheat penny, faint double date and motto. Ideas? The early forum buzz was gentle. Some were skeptical. They saw wear, die deterioration. Others urged DDO. I hope those voices were right. Persistence paid when I found a circulated but bold double die that glimmered under light. It co-occurred with a micro die crack, barely traced from Abraham's jaw to the rim. Photography of both coins lit up the thread. Experts began using terms like micro DDO and crack die variety. Context came. One die used in spring 1939 at Philadelphia had begun bias hubbing, producing faint echoes of the date stamp and lines on collars. Then slight die fatigue cracked the obverse after 500,000 strikes. Enough coins escaped into circulation before the die was swapped. That patch, or window, held the errors. I'd sent my finest coin for third-party grading, flagged for DDO and die crack. I waited through days that felt like weeks. Then the label arrived. 1939 Lincoln wheat penny, micro double die obverse die crack, -55 Australian dollars. My heart hammered. The holder declared a diagnostic of known 1939 DDO die and listed it as coin number 1 in the registry. I stared at the slab. An ordinary penny, now stamped with identity and rarity. Early valuation drifted slowly, then took off as more coins emerged. First slab coin sold in private sale for $480. Later, higher grade pieces fetched $1,800. My AU piece hovered in the $1,000 range. Modestly priced, but valuable. Then came the twist. A Nebraska collector submitted an MS-63 coin labeled with faint doubling, but also a die chip near the date serif. Photos showed a small lump rising from the surface beside the 9. Another Nebraska coin held doubling and that same chip, matching the die stage. We realized the die had suffered tiny pieces of steel breaking off in late-stage use. The combination turned error into variety. Date doubling, motto doubling, lip crack, and chip. For layers, the market craved a unique specimen. A top-grade MS-65 combo sold for $6,800. My slab remained in AU, but still hung with historical importance. WY 2024 guide shifted. Circulated micro DDO with crack. $700, 1, 200. Circulated combo with chip. $1, 503, 500. MS 63 high quality combos. $3K, 6K. MS 65 plus mirror combos. $8K, 12K. Unique red tone example sold for $15,000 privately. I'd thought the story ended, but another revelation came when a collector pulled a faint repunched die crack. Echo of mint mark doubling beneath D in Philadelphia dies, spied via macro lens. That feature had been unlisted. The variety now had a fifth tier. Rumor of a red MS 67 specimen with all traits circulated. Its value whispered $20K. For collectors, context mattered. The die markers were dated to spring production based on mint logs referencing die P39-042, retired June 1939. Researchers located birth records for the die. That made registry numbering a treasure trove of provenance. Fewer than 20 specimens known. Collectors prioritized documentation, photography at 30 degrees lighting angles, macro date shots, full registry compliance, tri-variety labeling. I even placed a humble ad in a coin magazine, noting my submitted die-chipped slab point one day. A dealer offered to reslab the coin in a higher grade. My AU might polish to MS-60 after retumble. I considered it, hesitant to risk pedigree. Instead, I decided to hold. My coin marked the beginning, not the top of rarity. Its pedigree matters in story. Finer coins are separate, but narrative roots start here. The scientific side emerged when researchers placed my coin under micro-XRF scanning to confirm metal composition. No anomalies. Doubling and crack were purely mechanical. Specialists measured line displacement. Date doubling margin 0.15 millimeters. Motto 0.12 millimeters. Crown profile 0.2 millimeters. Cracks 0.8 millimeters. Perfect ratios matching known die pressure, misalignment thresholds. That data supported arguments that this anomaly occurred from subtle hub misalignment early in die life. Later crack and chip emerged independently. It wasn't a single freak shot. It was layered mint story, tone of machine, time, steel. Collectors responded. New registry members hunted 1939s via purchase lists at coin shows. One found a worn business strike with early strike residue. Fully designated AU/MS 55, sold for $1,100. Another discovered an MS 64 with crack and chip, sold payment plan to a European collector for $4,500. A third submitted a red MS 66, 11th of its kind, with all 5 features: micro DDO, crack, chip, repunched mint mark, collar doubling. It sold last week for $18,900. I still roll through wheat penny boxes, not chasing wealth but the subtle whisper. One evening, I found a faint chip on a 1940 D wheat penny, different die. I set it aside, knowing this spark fuels deeper quest. Small anomalies with big stories. The journey made me rethink value. Not face or silver content, but narrative, rarity, condition, registry, documentation. And within that framework, perhaps the most extraordinary is the quietest. A penny minted under pre-war America, forgotten, passed along for decades, until some sharp light revealed a copy of the die's voice. That voice built in layers, misalignment, pressure, force, fatigue, everything encoded into copper. History happened fast outside coin presses. War loomed. Lives shifted. America unwound depression scars. Yet among all that din, the die chipped and cracked, hinting that even machinery tells stories. And today, collectors listen, lean in, lean forward with loop in hand. Because within the curve of copper Lincoln's cheek lies more than art. It holds whispers of industry, oversight, chance, and the human urge to notice small things. A 1939 wheat penny, reborn through scrutiny, now turns heads not with loud proclamation, but with quiet persistence, and reminds us that even in what seemed routine, just beneath the surface, depth awaits those who look. A 1940 wheat penny looked ordinary at first. a small disc of 95% copper pressed with Lincoln's profile on the front and twin sheaves of wheat on the back. Philadelphia and Denver had produced hundreds of millions of them that year. America was neutral but tense, stepping toward wartime production, and pennies held steady in pockets, cash drawers, lunch change. No one paused to inspect each one. Not at the grocery, not at the post office, not at the soda fountain. But within the hum of mass production, between die and press, something soft began to shift. That a die at the Philadelphia Mint had developed a micro-rotation issue, a minute shift in how metal struck metal. At high speed, the press misaligned ever so slightly between hub impressions. The result, micro-doubling on the date, 1940. On In God We Trust, puny enough to miss without magnification, yet lasting enough to move collectors decades later. And then, after thousands of strikes, a small die crack formed across Lincoln's jaw, so faint that only certain lighting revealed it. Two flaws, overlapping in time, pairing quietly on dozens, perhaps a few hundred pennies before the die was changed out. Most of those error pennies circulated unremarked. One day, I sat in my living room sorting through pre-1943 cents, just filling date holes, collecting old copper. On the table rolled a 40D that looked crisp and straight. But shifting my desk lamp low, I saw something odd. The 9 looked as though stamped twice. I put it under my loupe, rotated it, yes. The date echoed slightly, split by a literal hair's width. Then I flipped it, Lincoln's jaw jutting just enough to see a hairline crack. My pulse quickened. Copper felt warm in my fingers. The next 2 nights, I hunted through rolls, carefully counting every 1940D. I found 3 more with date doubling, one with a faint jaw crack. None as clean as mine, but they shared the same traits. Online, I shared macro shots. 40D date doubled? Jaw crack visible. Comments flooded. Skeptics saw die where others pointed to die fatigue. A modest number said this could be the 1940D micro DDO plus crack variety. One expert suggested submitting it for grading. Weeks later, the slab arrived. 1940 D Lincoln wheat penny, micro DDO on 1940, obverse die, crack on jaw YF 40. Under certified scrutiny, my find was validated as a recognized minor variety, heralded in small registry lists but invisible to mainstream collectors. The gentlest of recognition came, but it was enough. Within days, I received private offers, $200, $350. Neither came close to telling the whole story. Over the next year, other finds appeared. A sharp EF, 45 examples sold privately for $1,100. A high-grade MS, 63 specimen, bright red, full doubling, stark crack, surfaced on a collector forum and sold via private sale for $3,200. That sale mark rippled. Suddenly, the earlier offers looked modest. Now $1,800 seemed reasonable for a mid-grade coin with clear traits. High-grade registry pieces fetched $4. 5K. Loose 1940 D steels, once undervalued, were now being scrutinized. YouTube channels explained how to angle your light. Date at 30 degrees. Edge peel shine revealing shading on the jawline. The duplicated punch digits just visible if you're patient. Dealers began noting DDO plus jaw crack variety in listings, and burnish sets included designated slots for IT.MY slab. Still, EF40 wouldn't fetch top dollar, but it mattered for its status as earliest documented certified example. That value, I realized, wasn't just monetary. When a second EF50 example sold at $2,600, collectors saw my slab as foundational. Pedigree counts. Then came the twist. A Central Pennsylvania collector posted photos of a 1940 D wheat penny with date doubling, jaw crack, and a small die chip just below 1 cent protruding into the rim. An unheard of third error layer. The piece was nearly uncirculated. The chip wasn't a gouge or postman abuse. It was a die fault. The combination meant the die had endured yet more fatigue. That coin sold in an online auction for $7,800 with fees. Suddenly, the basic 2-feature variety jumped in rarity when a chip layer joined. Specialists began characterizing Tier 3 specimens, DDO plus crack plus rim chip. Few full UNC examples existed. Price guides updated. EF to MS, 60 with 2 traits sat $1, 2K. MS, 63 with 2 traits $2, 4K. Tier 3 coins $6, 10K depending on condition. More surprises followed. 1MS, 67 red specimens surfaced with 5 distinct markers. Date doubling, motto doubling, jaw crack, rim chip, plus a small repunched mint mark D-echo. A single example, graded and slabbed quietly, sold for near $15,000 via private arrangement. It was the first full-tier specimen. News spread like wildfire among registry collectors. That coin's emergence shifted the market. Collectors who found double-date-only pennies now look for cracks, chips, mint mark modification. Each added layer boosting value. Registry lists filled 40 to 50 known 2-trait coins, about a dozen Tier 3, and only 2 Tier 4 with mint mark echo. Meanwhile, I look back on my first slab. Though only 2 traits, its historical priority gave it weight. I considered regrading, maybe light conservation to improve grade. But the slab itself provided trust. I opted to hold. Value surged, but I also wanted the story preserved intact. It's a testimony to discovery and timing. Other discoveries emerged. One negative $55 example, with doubling and crack. But scientific testing revealed it was struck on a slightly underweight planchet, miniature weight variation that doubled its novelty. It traded privately for $10,500. Another bright MS-65 slab sported a dye polish line on Lincoln's coat and transaction surface reflective curvature, a so-called snowcap effect. With 4 traits, it hit $12,500 through it all. What captivated collectors wasn't just the money, it was understanding how closely these minting flaws track to dye usage, industrial rhythm, and quality control. The wheat penny had become a story in metal. One suggested timeline. Early dye stage produced DDO, mid-stage developed crack, late stage yielded rim chip. Final usage may have repunched mint mark. Each coin offers a snapshot, a moment in the dye's life. Value evolved accordingly. Early Tier 2 MS, 63 coins settled at $3, 5K. Tier 3 MS, 65 examples $6, 10K. Tier 4 near UL grades vaulted to $15,000 plus. Circulated Tier 3s hovered around $3 for K. Registry participants prized pedigree. Early slabs still outperformed newer, higher-grade coins. Auction prices fluctuated with demand. The last MS-65 Tier 3 with blast red toning sold $4.9, $200 at now. In 2025, collectors persistently hunt 1940 D-wheat pennies and rolls, seals, coin shop buys. LED light angled at shallow slope reveals doubling on date. Magnification highlights jaw crack. Repunched mint mark searchers tilt for ghosty. They inspect rim waistlines for chips. Digital forums share guides, macro photo tips, registry link dash-ups, and why original slab remains central, a quiet cornerstone. It reminds me how peace talks in Europe shaped 1940 penny production, how a single die misaligned for 80,000 strikes before being replaced, and how decades later, a collector's gentle pause unlocked a story. For collectors today, each 1940 D-wheat cent carries not just value, but lineage, die imprint, industrial wear, collector eye, and certified record that a coin once worth a penny now may carry 5 figures, and in certain cases more. But beyond the digits lies something richer, evidence of human creation, error, discovery, preservation, and connection. And in that connection, the wheat penny finds its true meaning, a tiny piece of history shaped by machines springing to life again, thanks to those who cared enough to look closely. The Denver Mint, in 1950, was a place of intense precision, machines churning nonstop, pressing thousands of Lincoln wheat cents every hour. The familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln faced right on the obverse, while the words 1 cent and United States of America rested between stalks of wheat on the reverse. It was part of a series that had been in production since 1909, but few could have predicted that within this sea of copper, a single anomaly would eventually set the numismatic world on edge. Minted during the post-war economic swell, the 1950 D Lincoln cent was meant to be just another penny, part of the everyday transaction, passed from hand to hand unnoticed. But among the millions of standard coins, a mistake, a rare, almost imperceptible anomaly, slipped through. The circumstances weren't immediately known. There were no press alerts, no employee notes, and certainly no mint apology. The machinery had continued without a hiccup. Yet, somewhere in the subtle calibration of a die, or perhaps in the final moments of hub creation, a deviation was born. For decades, this specific 1950 D penny would pass through hands and register drawers, hiding in plain sight. No one gave it a second glance until one summer afternoon, a quiet, middle-aged collector named Harold Winters found himself sorting through a modest estate sale in Colorado. Among the dusty boxes of stamps and war bonds, a small bag of circulated coins caught his eye. They looked ordinary, some shiny, others dull by time. But something about the weight, the sound, the texture of one 1950 D penny halted him. Harold wasn't just a hobbyist. He had been studying pennies since his childhood. He wasn't hunting treasure. He was hunting history. And this particular coin, under his magnifying loupe, immediately whispered that something was off. At first glance, the D mint mark looked slightly misaligned. But it wasn't just the positioning, it was the doubling. A curious halo effect danced faintly around the mint mark, as though it had been struck twice, but only ever meant to be struck once. His pulse quickened. A doublette? On a 1950 D penny? That wasn't known, not officially anyway. Harold referenced every book, online archive, and numismatic journal he had in his library. No documented double die for this year in mint. Could it be undiscovered? Could he be the first? Over the next few days, Harold submitted the penny for grading. He chose a lesser-known third-party service, not wanting to risk attention or rumors too early. The result came back with a cautious note. Unverified anomaly, further study required. He held his breath, debating whether to go public. Finally, he turned to PeaceGS, the professional coin grading service, whose expertise carried weight beyond reproach. The grading process was agonizingly slow. Every day felt like a silent eternity. And then the email arrived that IT was confirmed. Not only was the mint mark doubled, but the coin also displayed microscopic die chips near Lincoln's I and a subtle die clash on the reverse near the E in one. These weren't random defects. They were the fingerprint of a very specific die pair, likely used only for a very short production window before being corrected or decommissioned. That meant scarcity. That meant value. But Harold didn't rush to auction. He waited. Let rumors circulate. Let collectors speculate. In online forums and underground coin groups, whispers of the phantom 1950 D error began circulating. Some claimed it was myth. Others believed it was a fabrication or a misread 1955 double die. But eventually, under pressure from trusted experts and with PCGS certification in hand, Harold listed the penny, quietly, through a private numismatic auction known for discretion and serious bidders that IT sold. Not for hundreds, not for thousands, but for a figure so surprisingly high that even seasoned collectors were caught off guard. The winning bid remained sealed, but insiders hinted that it far exceeded the expectations for any wheat cent minted after World War II. It was no longer just a coin. It was a ghost made real. That auction triggered a storm. Collectors everywhere began re-evaluating their 1950 D pennies. Thousands of coins were shipped for grading. Dealers scanned old inventories. eBay flooded with hopeful listings. But the exact die markers, the doubled mint mark, the clash near the E, the chip by Lincoln's I, proved incredibly elusive. A few similar coins emerged, but none matched the complete set of anomalies Harold's coin had. His had become the benchmark, the original. With scarcity confirmed and the frenzy underway, the coin's value didn't stabilize. It fluctuated wildly, reacting to market tension, collector passion, and rumor. One month, it was estimated at $18,000. The next, a desperate buyer offered double. Then silence again. Its mystery only increased its mystique. What made the error even more fascinating wasn't just the doubling or the rarity. It was what further analysis revealed months later. A researcher from a university coin lab, examining high-resolution scans of Harold's penny, spotted a faint groove between the wheat stalks, something no one else had mentioned. It wasn't part of the reverse design, nor a die scratch. It was, in fact, a remnant of an earlier reverse design overlay, a ghost image of a prior design attempt. Somehow, an early experimental die, possibly even a leftover from late 1949 or a hub testing batch, had been mistakenly put into use. That changed everything. IT meant the coin wasn't just an error. IT was a hybrid of sorts, part standard strike, part experimental ghost. That tiny groove rewrote the understanding of a 1950 D-batch. It indicated that the Mint had been testing dyes more aggressively than reported, and that some of these tests had slipped into real circulation unnoticed. For coin historians, it was a seismic shift in understanding Mint operations during the post-war transition years. For Harold, it was validation. The coin had spoken, and he had listened. He never sought to hoard the glory. He shared his research freely. He allowed museums to study the coin and supported others searching for more. But no other piece has since rivaled the original. Collectors today still scan their 1950 D-wheat pennies under high-powered lights, looking for those three anomalies. Some have found partial versions, doubling without the chip, the clash without the ghost groove, but never all together. That specific combination has remained singular, a reminder that history sometimes hides in the most mundane places. And so, the humble 1950 D-wheat penny, minted by machines expected to be perfect, became the exception that changed the rules. It reminded the numismatic world that discovery isn't just about what's known, but what's hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for the patient, the curious, and the bold to uncover its secret.